Hello.
Hello. Oh, wow. We're here.
We're here. Is everyone coping through the hotness that's been?
I'm
Well,
living
I
my
like the
best
cooler
life.
days.
Do you?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Today and yesterday feels much better for me.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's the whole working from home, and then if you're in office, that Nico, I don't know whether you get it where you get the walls of no, it's too cold here, it's too hot here, and yeah, I
100%.
hate that in call
100%.
centres.
You can't satisfy anybody with it. And furthermore, we work at a company that can't even regulate it. So it's not that it's set at 21 or 18 and that's it. Everybody adjusts. No, you bring in my end where it's really warm and I'm loving it and everybody else is grumbling, and you come to the other end and it's freezing cold. Are you like, how? Well, bear in mind, freezing cold is relative, right? Um, doesn't take much for me to feel freezing cold. So yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
Mustn't complain. Mustn't complain. Just just a little bit too hot sometimes.
Oh dear, that's funny. Yeah.
So yes, welcome to the show. We've got one guest on today. We've got Melissa, and I am just going to put the banner up so you can see all the links and bits and pieces. But the links are before we start. The links are in on the chat and in the description. So
Oh,
while they're
fantastic.
talking about the event, you can just click on a link. Don't panic about writing it down or anything. So I shall leave you to it.
Hello. So welcome to the show, Melissa. So
Thank you.
just for the benefit of everybody, and even for myself, because I'm meeting you for the first time, could you just
hmm
give us a little bit about yourself and the background?
Yeah, so I'm here with my kind of faces hat on. I work for a local charity, Faiths Against Child Sexual Exploitation. So we're a safeguarding charity, a Christian and Muslim sort of collaboration. And we deliver training around safeguarding and also kind of identity and inclusion type work, with links to safeguarding and why it's really important that we acknowledge kind of that stuff, in sort of any sort of safeguarding approach. We also deliver some stuff to young people as well. And then I'm also a trustee for the Courtney Foundation, which is a social inclusion charity in Luton. We've run Luton Clothing Bank and other sort of social activities as well.
Oh wow, that's amazing. So how did you come to be involved with Faces?
Well, I kind of knew some of the original kind of members who kind of put the steering group together, and then the role came up, and applied for it, and it just seemed to fit. 'Cause I'd done a lot of community work that was based sort of in churches and faith-based, interfaith-based stuff as well beforehand. So that was very much kind of doing projects that bring people together, um, sort of just on a social basis first to get to know each other, and then kind of trying to direct that to some social action. Um, and so, kind of prior to Faces, I wasn't that familiar with kind of the safeguarding and CSE specifically, child sexual exploitation specifically. But sort of as the years have gone on, we've done a lot of training kind of internally as well, to help inform what we offer out to the public. So.
Wow. Okay. And in terms of offering something out to the public, how does that come about? In the sense that,
So
well, do people just approach you?
yeah, so we have a few different courses available, and then we run kind of our events as well. So we've got our conference coming up next week, which actually I could talk about now or a bit later maybe. Um, but yeah, so we have a CSE course, safeguarding refresher course, faith sensitive relationships and sex education. So we done a piece of research into young people's experiences, of what they found when they did RSE in high school, and how that kind of tackled subjects that relate to faith and identity and things like that, and whether they feel like that these subjects should take faith and background into account, and how well that's done or how that should be done and things like that. So what we've done in that training is try to break down our key findings there and deliver it in a way that can actually be applicable for teachers and school leaders to use that information. And
Okay.
then we've also got our identity and inclusion course, which kind of tries to unpack what really underpins the inequalities that we see that are based, whether it's on race or ethnicity or gender or disability, and try to explore kind of how social norms and standards underpin those problems, and what we can do about that, how we can check ourselves and challenge it, but also understand why these inequalities have existed, what's the kind of real things that where they come from, so that we can see what's kind of irrational and illogical, and be able to overcome it.
Oh wow, that's amazing. It's interestingly enough, I actually did an online safeguarding course at the weekend.
Yeah.
It does open. It did open my eyes, because there's certain things that you just do not think of in that perspective at all. Especially if you do not have what I would say, if you do not consider yourself to have a bad mind, you'll be like, so with that in mind, obviously you've mentioned that you go into schools, and that it's based on children. Do you have a particular age set that you're working with?
Yeah, so our current program is really aimed at secondary school young people, so whether that's in schools or kind of youth programs and things like that, and it's a three-part session. So the first kind of tries to look at value and identity, so who we are, but who people also might perceive us to be, and where we place value, what our kind of ideas of success are. The second one looks more at communication, so healthy and unhealthy, and kind of ways to communicate, but also being able to recognize what unhealthy communication might look like, and not wanting to do that ourselves, but also being able to tell where there might be some risks, as well. And then the third one unpacks more kind of what are our ideas about common things, so things that young people might either witness or find themselves involved in, and be able to give a space for that discussion and challenge kind of their ways of thinking, but in a way that lets them speak and lets them kind of share what their views are, and we just kind of try to, in a gentle, I suppose, kind of way, let them challenge themselves. So for that third session, that's really why it's more directed at secondary age young people, but I suppose it's easily adaptable as well for younger children as well.
Wow, okay. And I understand that you've got an event coming up that you...
Yeah. So next week, Thursday, we've got our conference. We haven't run a conference of this size since sort of pre-COVID. So we're really looking forward to having a lot of kind of similar faces, but also new faces come and join us. The conference is called Safeguarding Together. So we're aiming to have both practitioners and families and guardians and carers, together, to be able to have some of these discussions about how we can keep young people safe. What are the differences that we see young people facing compared to what we faced, in different generations? And how can we talk about sex and relationships linking to our RSE training with young people, and where are our kind of barriers in that? How, where does our comfort lie, and what do we need to kind of get more comfortable talking about as well? And also, what does the role of faith play in safeguarding, and how can we talk about the good stories, but also acknowledge where there might be problems with certain ideas as well. So that's kind of, we're going to have a space for conversation between all of the people that attend, covering those sort of three areas. But we've also got some speakers coming. So we'll have Nick Ponsonby, who's the deputy head at Chorney Girls, and also the safeguarding lead, will be sharing her kind of insights and experiences, particularly into RSE, relationships and sex education, and how we can kind of acknowledge some of the concerns that people might have, but really unpack why it's so important that actually we are able to deliver effective and appropriate RSE content to young people, because it's important for safeguarding. We need to be able to talk about these things so that young people can recognise harms and know what to do if something happens. And also Sufyan Sadiq, who's the head of the teaching school at Chiltern Learning Trust, he'll also be joining us to kind of share some insights into the local context of young people today, and what that means when we talk about demographic, and whether that's religion or ethnicity, and what those differences mean, but also try, and I'm kind of giving it all away now, but what it when we look at certain risks or harms happening to particular demographics, people can often wrongly frame that as it's a them problem, and that actually it's something that's innate in that identity that's making them more likely to do this thing. But actually that's not the case, and actually it's much more about the external kind of factors that place that young person at risk of falling into knife crime or whatever it is, rather than it being their fault. It's much more about how can we, as organizations and as a system collectively, how can we make sure that those young people aren't as vulnerable to falling into that. And then we've also got, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just conscious of the fact that you didn't want to give everything away, so I just thought, obviously, we need to encourage people to attend. So, how would they do that if they were interested in doing it?
Yeah, so we've got you can book through Eventbrite. So at faces23st.eventbrite.co.uk. I know you'll put the link down as well. And you can just book straight through there. It's at Hope Church on Thursday in the evening from 6 o'clock. It's only kind of a couple of hours, so we're trying not to take everyone's evening away, but we are trying to pack a lot into that. We'll also have a panel with the leader of the VERU, the Violence and Exploitation Reduction Unit, the chair of Luton Children's Safeguarding Board, and director of research from Youthscape, plus some tasters of some of the training that I've mentioned as well.
Okay, that sounds really good. I've got a question for you. Do you find that when you go into schools and you're talking to children, do you find that any of them have an idea about safeguarding or why they should, basically why they should actually keep themselves safe, considering?
Yeah. So I think we have. So I should say that a lot of our work, especially most recently, has been directed at practitioners and so teachers and youth workers and people that work with young people rather than young people themselves. But when we have done some deliveries into schools and youth places too, and I think some of them they hear it at school. They hear about what safeguarding is and things like that. We do try to. I think there's a balance around this idea of them keeping themselves safe, which we know, if we're realistic, there is a level of awareness that they need to have in order to make good decisions and safe decisions, because there is a level of decision making and agency that they have. But also making sure that that's not the whole conversation, because actually the risk that they face, in a perpetrator, is there regardless of what they do. So it's not, if something happens, it's not their fault. There's not something that they did that resulted in that, but actually it's about the awareness of the risks. And when we talk about risk, when we look at the internet and online spaces, all of the risks that we could see offline can exist online, whether that's exploitation or whatever it is. So it's why it's really important that we are, really equipped with knowing how all the interactions can work online, whether it's in games or, whatever it is. And my children, one of them in particular, she's always playing games, and they always have a new app to like Discord and these things that we didn't have to talk to people with, and trying to navigate that and figure that out. I tried to get her to sit me down and just talk me through it and let me, explain it to me so I can understand. But it can be difficult.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that question, because I'm part of the course that I did on Sunday. We listened to an interview by, I don't know if you're aware of the case, there was a big case a few years ago about these young boys who had been groomed and, everything else because they wanted to get into football. This particular guy, one of the things that he said, he was, I think, between the ages of 10 and 11 when it was all going on for him. And he said that he didn't know that he was vulnerable. To him, it was just the thought. The way he said it, I thought to myself, "But yeah, you were 11, you wouldn't know that." But the thing that came into my head when that kind of clicked off was that you do meet some children who they do think that they're grown, and it's not because they're precocious or they're above themselves. That is just how they think, and so they wouldn't necessarily be aware of these dangers. Does that make sense?
I think I mean, children, kind of outside of that kind of particular situation, children do think they know, more than they know, and they do think that we as parents or as teachers or whatever, we just don't understand. So I think we have to kind of go into conversations and things, acknowledging that we can't come in and say to them, you don't know what you're doing, or you don't understand. We have to kind of realize that there will be a level of their own situation that they do understand better than us, because they know their thinking, and we need to understand how they're perceiving a situation in order to maybe start peeling back what there may be misunderstanding about it as well. But certainly with grooming, it's not I suppose obvious, maybe not the right word, but it's not an obvious crime in that you can't always see it, because it might just look like a really friendly coach or whatever it is, and just going the extra mile to help that student, because, and if that young person's vulnerable in whether maybe having a kind of unstable household situation, or being bullied or something like that can make them more vulnerable to this, it could look like actually that person's just being really kind and really nice, but we don't know the intentions behind it. So it's important to be alert to that, definitely.
Yeah, so Simply D's put up a comment there where it will say that is quite a scary thing, because obviously the kids are learning things faster than adults.
Yeah, for sure. And even when we look at the kind of the nature of different social media platforms, TikTok and things like that, like you can't control what comes up on your feed. You can't, even on, I don't use TikTok, but even Facebook, there's loads of things that I'm not following that come up on my feed. So how that's affecting young people who are spending a lot of time online is definitely true, that they're coming across things that I wouldn't have come across at that age, because unless it happened maybe in a TV show that my mum's let me watch, or a conversation with one of the adults around me, I wouldn't have learned about it. But for them, for sure, there's things that are they're being exposed to much at a much younger age than we've seen, which, again, going back to the RSC, it's why it's really important, although we might be scared of what relationships and sex education means at school, it's really important that we are addressing it at home, is my opinion, that we're able to talk about these things frankly. I try my best as a parent to, I've got a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and although there's that different age bracket that they're in as well, I still try to make sure that I'm having the same conversation with both of them, because if you've not already heard about it, you're going to, or even if you tell me you're not, you may well have heard your friends kind of already having those kind of conversations, and I think we have to talk about it. I'd rather they hear it from me, even if I'm the one that's introducing a thing, than them hear it from their friends who are kind of equally maybe misinformed, or
100%. Wow, it's a lot to unpack. And we've got a question here from Dee. She's asking if you are in primary schools.
We haven't delivered anything in primary schools yet. So our offer for young people is our one kind of program that we have, that I described earlier. So that was made for secondary age young people. But I do think it's quite easily adaptable. And ideally we want to be able to pass on these packages for schools and youth workers and things to deliver themselves as well, so that that the work is kind of reaches more young people beyond us, beyond what we can reach.
Okay, wow, that's amazing stuff. And hello, Shelley, welcome back.
I was just going to say about the primary schools that there doesn't seem to be, I'm trying to word this properly, that they believe that things like this doesn't happen in primary school age children, and it's starting to, because they're picking up online, they're picking up all these other different bits and pieces, and there's different ways that what you think is an online platform that's okay for a child of that age, actually there is other ways that people are getting around it, and people are talking and being secretive. So it's unfortunately we do need to be that little bit younger in a way, and they're growing up faster than we ever did at school.
And also, even in primary age young people, there is a level of exploration of themselves and kind of trying to understand what certain feelings might mean, and these ideas of fancying this person and that person that are obviously going to be there as well. So yes, definitely need some mature guidance in, as in an adult with experience and knowledge, being able to guide those thoughts that they're having, rather than them being left to it themselves. You know, if a teacher shies away from talking about things and a parent does, it just leaves the child to maybe, like you said, go and find out about that online.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I saw something online probably a few months ago. It was very interesting. It was a lady who was talking. She was telling the story of this young person who had somebody, untoward had tried to pick them up because it was a setup. And when the mother said to her, "Why did you go with that person? I've told you not to talk to strangers." And the child got up and said, "But Mom, he's not a stranger. He's my friend. His name is this and that, and he's got a puppy in his car. And and I was going to go look at the puppy." And and I'm listening to it. I was thinking to myself, "Oh
Scary.
my God!" And
Yeah.
but what this lady was saying is that rather than just that, now it's not enough to tell your kids do not talk to strangers. That she believes that we should be using scenarios. What if this? What if that? Yeah, I don't know. I was just curious as what you would think about something like that, because it just,
Yeah, I think definitely it makes our messages clearer when we use examples. That's why
yeah,
we use, and that's for adults as well. You know, if we're learning something new, kind of doing it
yeah,
as a case study or something, it makes it clearer for us. I always remember my mum, talking about, even if someone offers you sweets, they might not be sweets. Like, as you said that, I had that memory, and simple things like that will stay with you. But yeah,
yeah,
definitely, I think for younger children, especially if they can't understand kind of the more simple or direct language we'd use for older
yeah.
young people, then using them kind of examples and stories is important. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because all of
Gosh,
that then turns into like their mental health kind of thing as well. It's the whole
yeah,
thing that as it sits there when they're trying to work out their own thoughts and feelings, and yeah, so you're covering one bit, but then it's also then covering a lot of other stuff as well, just by actually having that conversation of
yeah.
talking and things like that.
Yeah, and I'm
Wow.
glad you mentioned mental health, because we've talked about safeguarding from a kind of abuse or a kind of a scenario like we've just mentioned about grooming and things like that. Um, but actually not having these healthy and appropriate kind of conversations can also obviously impact young people's mental health, because if they're having um, thoughts and feelings and ideas around whether it's relationships or sexuality or other things, and they don't feel they have a safe place to talk about that, then of course they're going to feel unsupported, and that can really affect mental health as well. And
Mhm.
when we
Yeah,
get kind of we have kind of highs of being really good about talking about mental health, don't we? And we say, you must speak to someone and reach out, or you can speak to me. If you see this on my feed type of posts we see around, which is something, but it also, we need to take that proactive kind of approach to it as well, don't we? Not just say, okay, Shelley, if you're ever feeling sad, talk to me, but actually saying, Shelley, how are you? Are you,
Yeah.
and I think
yeah,
it's the same for young people. We can't just expect them to come to us, and we have to actually be a bit uncomfortable and create
yeah,
that space for a conversation about things, and also acknowledge that, whether it's mental health alone or if it's more about relationship stuff, there are going to be things that we feel less equipped or uncomfortable to want to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's why it's good that we have other services that can kind of do that. And schools and family workers, should be a
yeah,
great place for families if people are listening and think, actually, I don't have these conversations, but I want to, or I sense something's happening, but I don't know how to approach it.
mm,
Hopefully asking the school can help kind of guide that in the best way.
Especially some of those conversations where you think that you're going to make things worse, or you're going to put the idea
Mm,
in that person's head because
yeah,
you've said it. So, like the whole suicide thing,
mm,
to say suicide to someone doesn't mean that you're going to put it into their mind. And it's the language that you then use. So, with the things like relationships, um, that they think they're speaking to a 15-year-old lad, and it's not. It's someone coercing them that's a lot older. that it's having those kind of like conversations. You're not belittling them or anything like that, and like the whole thing, it all kind of like ties in together, and it's a difficult one to actually then like work your way around. But sort of like charities like yourself that are doing this kind of work, and it's not like, when you say safeguarding, quite often it's because you're in a particular role, it's your particular job, and you go on this course.
Yeah.
Whereas with Faces, it is that it's everyone in together. It's a collaboration, and it's not just sort of like the faith thing, and it's sort of like your children and your how they're actually interacting with each other and things. It's so good to actually have something like that, rather than it just being, the thing I heard safeguarding, and as I get dragged into school because I have to have a conversation with some specialist that I might not actually then see again, that we had to have this one conversation about something. So to actually have the parents involved in all of that,
is
is
amazing
great.
idea.
But yes, all the links and everything are in the bit to do with the show. It's in the chat.
The description.
It's
Oh,
in
it's on
the
YouTube.
description.
It's in the description.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of the two different places then.
Oh God,
Yeah, so
that's
just
funny.
click on the link direct to Faces, the Eventbrite bit on there.
Thank you.
And then also you then got the website. So everyone, please do go and have a look on the website and see all the other bits and pieces that they've got going on there.
Thank you.
Really amazing. Thank you for coming. As honestly, it's very enlightening, interesting.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. And hopefully see you next week.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. No problem.
Did you want to wait behind the screens then, Melissa? I'm just going to go through some of the bits and pieces that we've got. Well, not necessarily us that have got going on, but some that we're part of, some that are part of the Friends of Simply D's. And just before we came on here, I wrote a list out, but then I said to Melissa, I didn't actually write it down in date order, so I'm going to have to really concentrate.
Oh my God. You're so funny.
Right, so on Sunday the 2nd of July, the Sundon Park Summer Festival is on. So the so it's Leagrave Park, really, isn't it?
Oh, I was going to say the one that was on last year.
Yes, yeah. So as you go up,
wonderful.
sort of like Sundon Park Road, you've got the little pavilion. So they've got their Piece by Piece project that's in the pavilion. So they've got their little bit there. And then you've also then got part of it that's then on the field itself, because I think they've got some football matches and bits and pieces going on as well.
Okay.
From what I've seen. So that starts at 1:00 and it goes through till 6, I believe. So there's food, there's entertainment, and there's shopping-y kind of bits and pieces going on there as well. Throughout the whole of July, Luton Borough Council celebrating the Disability Month.
Okay.
And they've actually got a whole different events kind of going on in St George's Square, at Wardown Park, like in the bandstand bit. I think there's a fun run. There's different themes for different days during the day, during the week. So you've got like physical disabilities, and then you've got there's one to do more with sensory. There's some that's then to do with the young people. There's some that's then for like the neurodiversity, so anything that's like autism, ADHD, that kind of thing. So they're going to have lots of different charities and projects going on that are going to be part of the Disability Pride Month. So have a look at our Facebook page. It's got the poster there, and it's got the link onto the Luton Borough Council webpage that's got all the different bits and pieces then on there. I think it's the 12th of July. That is the sensory one, and the reason why I'm highlighting that one is it's by Sight Concern Bedfordshire, and my cousin actually works for that charity. So
Oh wow, okay.
So they're actually doing the sensory one because they've got a guy there, and he works for the charity. He's the face of the charity, if you like, with his guide dog. So if you want to go and see George and Yusuf, that's the dog, they're both gorgeous.
Oh my God, Shelley, I've had dogs.
He's lovely. You're not supposed to treat him, but every time he knows that, I mean, I've only seen him twice, to like two different events, and both times he's now my best friend.
Oh wow.
Because he got a treat. Towards the end of July, we've got Afrofest, which is our friend Munya. 22nd of July. Now, I don't know what time it finishes. We start at 12. I thought it was 6, but I did see a post that said 8. So I don't know whether she's got an extension or what's kind of going on. But yes, Afrofest. So there'll be lots of different bits and pieces going on the stage. So there'll be dancing, drumming, music. Dee's then done. Yep. So it is 8 o'clock. Like drumming, and then have stalls, and we are going to be there with our own stall of Simply Dee's events. So we'll be helping out kind of by being there. But this time, last time it was in town, this time is in Stockwood Park, and you have to go in at the Farley Hill end of Stockwood Park. You're not going in like the London Road Discovery Golf.
Oh right, okay.
End. Yeah, you come in at the Farley Hill end. So we're on.
I've been there before, yeah.
See, Farley. Sorry, excuse the dog.
What's wrong with TJ?
A car's gone down the road. That's all I can say, I think. So Farley Hill has got 2 entrances, and people always get confused because you can't drive all the way through anymore like you used to.
Oh.
So it's the Farley Hill end of Stockwood Park.
Wow.
And other than that, it's just next Tuesday. I'm not quite sure what the show is going to look like, because I'm going to be over at Milton Keynes at the Banner of Hope.
Oh, right. It's on Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah. So, Baton of Hope has started off. We've started off in Scotland. I think it was Glasgow, and it's coming all the way down the country. Excuse me a second. While I shout. It's come down. It's coming down the country, and it stops off at different places. And the nearest one to us at Luton is Milton Keynes. So next Tuesday, it starts off at 9 o'clock and goes all the way around Milton Keynes. It's got different events as it goes round the towns that it's in. I will have hold of the baton on my stints at about 3 o'clock. So I start walking through the Great Values Park kind of bit, and we end up at the pagoda, the Peace Pagoda, at the end of the evening to have like a little mini concert. But there's a conference going on at the MK Dons Stadium all through the day as well. So all the links are on our webpage. If you then want to know more about the Baton of Hope, it's a UK suicide awareness 2 weeks, if you like. And this baton actually looks like an Olympic flame kind of baton. So yes, it's the first of its kind. and everyone that's walking with the baton has some kind of mental health or suicide story, whether that be that they are someone that has thought about suicide, is a suicide survivor, or who has lost someone to suicide.
Wow.
So we all had to fill out a form, send it off, and then you got told whether you was approved or not. And then my particular story is, and some of our usual guys may already know this, my cousin's daughter took her life at 13. And going back a little bit to what Melissa was then saying, hers was because of online grooming, and online bullying taking place in the school. And what people need to understand that nowadays, when we say bullying, they can't just come home from school, shut the door, and be in a safe place for a few hours until they need to go back to school again. Getting all this online bullying all of the time, finding a way of doing it. So yes, that's one of my stories. That the reason why I do all of my mental health bits and my suicide awareness bits, and yes, and why I was then accepted as a baton bearer.
Well done.
So at 12 o'clock, the baton should be going through MK Dons. So I might be live from there. So you can see everything that's going on.
That's what I was going to say. It would be really good. It would be good to have a live journalist out there, because we always often say that we would love to do that. Yeah.
Yes,
that would be amazing.
I'm not quite sure how it's going to work, but it should be coming through at 12 o'clock. So if the timings are right, if not, you'll just have me at the conference part of it, and then you can see. But yes, so that's everything that's coming up for July. Our big next event, little preview. Dee's already put it in the chat. Little preview. A young people's event that we're putting on.
Oh, you got the date.
By the young people, for the young people.
Young people.
2nd of September.
Put
the date in your diaries, because we want the young people there, but we also then want you. I could say your elders, not really, but yeah, it's for everyone to come along, and we need to then support sort of them actually putting on their own event. This is nothing that we're actually sitting here and doing for them. We're doing the legwork a bit for them. We're using our contacts, but there is a young team that's involved with actually putting on this event. So,
wow, amazing!
All excited.
September sounds familiar. Yeah.
So even though we're not doing anything, there's lots going on in July.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Okay, right.
So I think yes, as usual, subscribe, find all our. I'm doing that, but then find all our pages, the emails. If you could subscribe to our email list, because we're going to be doing a little bit different with the emails. We want to get that out to everyone, and we want to be there's been events that have been going on in the town that quite a lot of people hadn't actually been hearing about. So I kind of want to make sure that we're an email service to everyone that's letting everyone know. So it's alongside this show. If you've got anything that you've got going on, a project, an event, let us know and we can promote it for you.
Wonderful.
Was there anything else?
It's been awesome. No, actually, I was just saying to Melissa, having done that safeguarding course yesterday, I mean, I was already kind of, well, I don't think prickly is the word, but, it was just like, oh, oh, I didn't really think of it like that, and that type of stuff. And
Isn't
so
it?
listening to what she had to say today was just amazing. So yes, everybody, please do feel free to share. Let everybody know what's happening in the world, at least in the world of Luton and Bedfordshire around. And who knows?
We'll be everywhere. We're getting everywhere.
Indeed. So, no, it has been interesting. So thank you to everybody that's watching. If you're watching on the replay, do still feel free to ask your questions because we will answer. And hopefully we'll see you next time. So thank you.
Whatever it looks like next week.
It's going to be amazing. Don't mind Shelley. It's going to be amazing. We're going to see her doing amazing things. So, oh dear.
See you next week. Slip, slap,
Right,
slop.
later.
It's still going to be hot. Keep. Don't get sunburn.
Oh my God, I know. Sunburns. That's all we need.
No. See you later.